Welcome back, dear friends, to your daily dose of ancient wisdom. Today we continue our reading of Srimad Bhagavata Mahapurana, Tritiya Skandha or Book 3, Discourse 25. Lord Kapila expatiates on the glory of devotion in response to query of Mother Devahuti. Sage Saunaka said, Kapila, who expounded the true nature of the fundamental principles, was no other than the birthless Lord Narayana, who descended upon his own free will and through his own Maya or wonderful creative energy in order to teach the humanity the truth of the self. Although I have often heard the stories of the Lord, my senses are not sated with hearing the glory of Lord Kapila, the best of all men and the foremost of all yogis. Having assumed by his own Maya a personality conforming to the will of his devotees, whatever the Lord does is all worth singing. Therefore, kindly narrate all those doings to me, full of reverence as I am. Suta said, urged in this way to expound the true nature of the fundamental principles, the worshipful Maitreya, a friend of sage Dvaipayana or Vedavyasa, addressed Vidura as follows according to the spirit of his inquiry. Maitreya said, when Kardama, Lord Kapila's father, had left for the forest, Lord Kapila stayed in the latter's hermitage on the strand of the same Bindu Sarovara in order to please his mother Devahuti. One day, when Kapila or Devahuti's son, who was capable of showing to her the culmination of the fundamental principles, sat at leisure, Devahuti recalled the words of Brahma and spoke to him as follows. Devahuti said, I am awfully sick of the craving for enjoyment of my wicked senses, O perfect one. It is because my unremitting efforts to gratify this craving that I have fallen into the deep abyss of ignorance, O Lord. In this present birth, as I am sure is going to be the last of a long series, I have now, by the grace of you, secured in you an excellent eye to enable me to see through this thick veil of darkness which is so difficult to penetrate. You are no other than the Lord, the most ancient person and the ruler of all embodied souls, who has appeared like the sun as an eye to the world blinded by ignorance. Now be pleased, my Lord, to dispel my great delusion, for the feeling of I-ness with reference to the body and that of mindness in respect to all that is connected with it have been inspired by you. Your ascertaining the true nature of Prakriti and Purusha, the spirit, I have sought refuge in you, who afford protection to all and are a veritable axe of the tree of metempsychosis in the case of your devotees. I bow to you, the foremost of those knowing the sacred true religion. Maitreya continued. On hearing of his mother's innocent desire, which was calculated to stimulate in men the longing for liberation, the Lord, who is the goal of noble souls that have subdued their self, mentally approved of it and spoke as follows. His countenance bearing with a gentle smile, the Lord said, in my opinion, the only means of final beatitude is yoga in the form of contemplation of the Supreme Spirit, which is characterized by absolute cessation of both joy and sorrow. I shall now explain to you that very yoga which is perfect in every limb and which I taught to your of sages like Narada, who were keen to hear it, O virtuous lady. Mind alone is held responsible for the bondage and emancipation of the soul. Attached to the objects of senses, it leads to bondage. When, however, it develops affinity to the Supreme Person, it brings liberation to the soul. When the mind is purged of its impurities in the form of lust and greed, which have their roots in the senses of I-ness and mine-ness, and becomes pure, it grows indifferent to pleasure and pain and gets equipoised. With a mind equipped with true knowledge and dissipation as well as with devotion, the jiva or the individual soul then perceives the self as one without a second, undifferentiated, self-effulgent, subtle, indivisible, unattached, and beyond prakriti or matter and prakriti as reduced in strength. For striving souls, there is no blissful road to God realization like devotion directed towards the Lord, who is the soul of the universe. The wise consider attachment as an unyielding fetter for the soul. The same, however, serves as an open door of liberation when it is directed towards saints. Saints are forbearing, compassionate, and composed. They are friendly to all living beings and inimical to none, and follow the injunctions of Shastras. Their good disposition itself serves as an ornament to them. With an undivided heart, they practice unflinching devotion to me, and for my sake they abandon even their obligatory duties and forsake their kinsmen and relatives. Nay, they listen to and narrate delightful stories relating to me, their mind ever set on me. Afflictions of various kinds, therefore, never torment such people. Such are holy men, free from all attachment, O virtuous lady. Attachment of such holy men must be sought for by you, for they counteract the pernicious effect of attachment. Through the fellowship of saints, one gets to hear my stories, leading to a correct and full knowledge of my glory and pleasing to the heart as well as to the ear. By hearing such stories, one is sure to develop one another reverence and fondness for and devotion to the Lord, whose realization is preceded by the cessation of ignorance. Developing distaste for the pleasures of senses belonging to this world as well as to the next, through devotion engenerated by contemplation of my pastimes, connected with the creation, preservation, and dissolution of the universe, the man who enjoys the fellowship of saints will diligently and devoutly strive to subdue his mind through easy process of yoga or devotion. Through the renunciation of material objects of senses, through wisdom supplemented by dissipation, through yoga or concentration of mind, and through devotion directed towards me, man attains to me, self of all embodied souls in that very life. Devahuti said, "What kind of devotion is worth developing towards you, and what is the type fit to be practiced by me, through which I may easily and immediately attain to your being a synonym of liberation? What is the character of the yoga or discipline referred by you, O embodiment of supreme bliss, as a direct means to God perception, like an arrow which goes through straight to its target, as well as the realization of truth, and how many are the processes supplementary to the same? Kindly explain all this to me in such a way that I, a dull-witted woman, O Hari, may understand the difficult process with ease by your grace." Maitreya resumed, having thus learnt the object of his mother Devahuti, through whom he had appeared in a human semblance, Lord Kapila was filled with affection for her and expounded the system of philosophy which teaches the fundamental principles such as Prakriti, Purusha, and so on, and which they call as Sankhya, as well as the elaborate course of devotion and yoga, the process of meditation, and the other methods of mind control. The Lord said, Motiveless devotion to the Lord may be defined as the natural inclination towards the Lord, who is an embodiment of sattva or goodness, of the senses of a man of undivided mind, which are the only means of perceiving the object as well as the organs of action which are engaged in activities enjoined by the Vedas. Devotion, as defined above, is superior to final beatitude itself, that is, speedily dissolves the subtle body even as the gastric fire digests the food that is devoured. Some devotees of the Lord, who ever delight in the service of my feet, are engaged in activities only for my sake, and who lovingly sing to one another of my exploits alone, crave not even for absorption into my being. The aforesaid saints, O Mother, behold my charming and divine forms, possessed of a smiling face and ruddy eyes, forms which confer boons on them and have talks with them, which are the envy even to the greatest sages. Their devotion to me secures to them a place in my subtle abode, which, though they never seek it, their mind senses fascinated by those forms with attractive limbs, captivating playful gestures, glances accompanied with a smile, and delightful speech. They no longer crave for the wealth and enjoyments of Satyaloka, the highest heaven, and the other spheres falling within my jurisdiction of Lord of Maya, nor for the 8 kinds of supernatural powers that come to them of their own accord as a sequel to devotion, nor even to the wealth and splendor of the Lord's own realm of Vaikuntha, which are full in every respect, yet they do enjoy these in the abode of the Supreme. They who depend on me, nay, to whom I am only object of love, nay, the very self, the son, the friend, the preceptor, the kith and kin, and chosen deity, are never deprived of those enjoyments in Vaikuntha, which consists of pure sattva, nor does my weapon in the shape of time ever devour them. I take them once for all to the other side of death, or the ocean of birth and death, who worship me with exclusive devotion in the aforesaid manner, realizing my presence in every quarter and renouncing this world and the next, nay, even their own conditioned self in the shape of their subtle body, which wanders through both, and all those who are connected with the same here, namely one's near and dear, as well as one's possessions such as wealth, cattle, and houses, and everything else. The terrible fear of birth and death can never be got rid of by resorting to anyone other than myself, the Almighty Ruler, the ruler of both Prakriti and Purusha, or matter or spirit, the self of all living beings. It is through fear of me that the wind blows. It is through fear of me that the sun shines. It is through fear of me that Indra, the god of rain, sends forth showers, fire burns, and death goes about taking its toll. For lasting happiness, the yogis, striving souls, betake themselves through the practice of devotion, accompanied by spiritual knowledge and dissipation, to my feet, which are free from fear of every kind. A mind fixed on me through the intense practice of devotion and steadied thereby, that is the only means for men in this world to attain the final beatitude. Thus ends the 25th Discourse, forming the story of Lord Kapila in Book 3 of the great and glorious Bhagavatam Mahapurana, otherwise known as Paramahamsa Samhita. Thank you.